So first, a little bit more about me. So I am a former web developer, kind of a lifetime ago. After that, I spent a number of years doing a bunch of other things that we'll not talk about. For the past 5 years, I've been a native iOS and Android developer. So I've been using Objective-C and Swift now to make iOS apps, Java to write Android apps. Like Richard mentioned, about 3 weeks ago, I joined a project that's been ongoing here at Raizlabs for a while using Xamarin. So I myself am just getting started with Xamarin, so I wanted to tell you about Xamarin.Android in particular. So just in terms of outline, we'll talk about what Xamarin is, look at a typical app architecture in Xamarin, go into a little bit of detail on C# and .NET, which are the main tools used for Xamarin apps, look at a sample project, talk about some little gotchas, and kind of the main point I want to make in this talk is Xamarin's pretty cool. Feels a lot like making Android apps. Definitely worth checking out if you're working on a cross-platform app. Okay, so first, what is Xamarin? So Xamarin is a tool set based on .NET using C#. It has a long history going back about 10 or 15 years with the Mono project. It's now been brought over to the mobile world, got renamed to Xamarin. And this is the list of items that they define on their website on what Xamarin is. So I'm just going to run through these real quick. Number one, complete binding for the indigenous SDKs. So they've totally wrapped the iOS SDK and the Android SDK using C#. Interop with other languages. So if you have a library that's written in Java or Objective-C, you can interact with those libraries from C# in a Xamarin app. Modern language constructs. Again, C# is the language you'll be using. It's been around for about 15 years, but it's evolved quite a bit, which we'll talk about. It's got a lot of modern features in it. Amazing base class library. So it's Xamarin apps are built on .NET. You have access to a lot of the .NET code, and becomes very useful for writing that shared code that's in your Xamarin app. Modern integrated development environment. So you have access to Visual Studio using a Xamarin plugin. Xamarin also produces an IDE called Xamarin Studio that you can use. They're both really nice and really allow you to code in a very efficient way. So finally, mobile cross-platform support. So using all these tools, you're able to make apps that have a large amount of shared code targeting multiple platforms. Okay, a typical app architecture. So I called it typical. If I really meant that, I probably wouldn't have included this, but just for completeness, I put Windows Phone up there. So this is just a high-level view of what a Xamarin app looks like. So the few key points here are that this entire stack is written in C#. So all of your code is going to be in C# making a Xamarin app. Going kind of bottom to top, you've got this shared code layer in which you're going to be making API calls, have your database code, user settings, and one thing that's really nice to put in your shared code is view models. The MVVM pattern was actually started in the .NET world, and it's kind of moved over to iOS quite a bit. I don't see it as much in Android, but in a Xamarin app, it's really, really useful. Let's say you have a table view in iOS and a recycler view in your Android app. You can use view models to totally populate those views as your data source or as your model and your adapter. So view models are definitely a really key way to share code in a Xamarin app. So again, it's all in C#. Realistically, your shared code base is going to be around 30, 40, 50%. Xamarin might code a higher number for that, but that's kind of a good goal to shoot for. The non-shared code is going to be your UI code, any platform-specific libraries. And Xamarin has a tool set called Xamarin Forms that you can make UI code in, but it's somewhat limited, so you'll probably write your UI code in a more platform-specific way. Okay, so I want to say a few words about C# and .NET. Again, they've been around for about 15 years. Originally, they were Microsoft's response to Java and a Java SDK. So they share a lot of similarities to both the language and the library. C# has really evolved over the years, so there's lots of modern things in it. There's Lambda expressions. There's language level threading using the async and await keywords. There's something called LINQ, which stands for Language Integrated Query, which kind of lets you look into collections in a very SQL type way. And then a really nice event model, and you have the ability to do extensions on classes in C#. So some really good stuff there. free to use. Okay, this is a slide of a sample project. And this is actually like a template project that comes with Xamarin Studio. So just a few things here. You have what's called a solution, which is the overall project, and then the sub-projects. So you have an Android project, you have an iOS project, and then a shared code project. There's a few different ways to share code. But the main point I want to make here is if you look at the Android project, it looks very similar to what you might see in Android Studio. You have resources, which have layout files. You can put drawables in here, values. And those XML files actually look just like they do on Android. So the kind of the project structure is very similar to what you're used to, especially in that Android part of the project. And here is the main activity file, which is a C# file. So we'll look at that. If you kind of squint and look at this, it kind of looks like activity written in Java, right? You have a namespace, which corresponds to the package. You've got main activity, which is extending activity. You've got an onCreate method, which is taking your saved instance state bundle. You're setting the content view. Here you're finding a view by ID and setting an onClick listener to it. So it's all very similar to what you do in Java on Android, just in a different language, which is very similar to Java. And it looks really, really, you're really comfortable kind of doing this in C#. Okay, just want to run through some little gotchas. So what I found is that as you're coding, you kind of run into these little things a lot. This is just kind of one example of something that you're translating from Java to C# in your head. This is one example. Let's say you're subclassing a view class, like a view pager. It's in a namespace. In Android, you throw that into your XML file by doing package name dot class name. In Xamarin, instead you have the namespace dot the class name. But the little gotcha here is that the namespace has to be lowercase, even though it's uppercase in the C# file. So that's the kind of thing that you run into all the time when you're doing Xamarin coming from the Android world. So you just have to be aware of that, and kind of every day you're going to see something like this, and over time you get used to it. So, okay, so just to kind of conclude, this is kind of a list of things that would tell you that you're a good candidate for a Xamarin project. If you're targeting multiple platforms, obviously, if you foresee sharing a lot of code or the ability to share a lot of code, if your dev team is experts in Java, which they likely are, or if they're already familiar with C#, that's a good position to be in. We're kind of finding that you still want to have at least one good developer per platform, because if 60% of the code is platform specific, you want people that are familiar with iOS and Android to focus on those parts of the project. And lastly, I'll just say that it definitely feels a lot like making an Android app. So it's something that's very easy to kind of shift into as you're coming from the Android world. So with that, I am all done. Thank you.